They were used to gods they could see, carved in stone, gods with beautiful bodies of men and women, and heads of animals. Akhenaten's god, the Aten, was an abstraction. It was the basic principle of the universe, light. Akhenaten's subjects just couldn't understand this. This wasn't a god they could rely on in times of need. Besides, there was an elitism to the new religion that must have puzzled the would-be disk worshippers. The Aten never shed its rays on them, only on the royal family. The Aten was Akhenaten's own personal god, giving the king unbridled love and sustenance. Maybe it replaced the father who had pushed him into the background. It was Akhenaten and his family who worshipped the Aten. Everyone else had to make do with the light reflected from Akhenaten. It's almost as if the new religion came in two sizes, commoner size and king size. At his holy city in the desert, Akhenaten was far removed from the suffering he'd experienced as a child at Thebes. But he was also removed from reality. There was trouble in paradise. Egypt was dying. For more than 10 years, Akhenaten had lived in his beloved Amarna, with his thoughts focused on religion and his personal god, the Aten. But no one was minding the store. It was as if the President of the United States had moved the capital to Wyoming and started writing poetry. Egypt's once great army had grown weak. Foreign countries no longer sent tribute. From remote outposts in Syria and Lebanon, Egypt's foreign ambassadors wrote to the king that they were no longer respected. Letters written by one of his loyal princes, Ribadi, tells of the lack of respect for both Akhenaten and Ribadi. Writing from his fortified position, he pleaded,
"They have formed a conspiracy with one another, and thus I have great fear that there is no man to rescue me out of their hand. Like birds that lie in a net, so am I."
You have to remember how isolated Ribadi was. For Egyptian troops to reach him, they would have to march through Gaza, Canaan, into the Bekaa Valley of Syria, and then north. This was always hostile territory. Today, you can still see Crusader forts, built 2,000 years later, remnants of medieval battles fought there. This was where Ribadi was writing from. If the Egyptian army didn't save him, no one would. Ribadi repeatedly wrote, telling Akhenaten of Egyptians' weakening position and asking for troops. His last letter also went unanswered.
"I cannot go out of the gate, and I have written to the palace, but thou hast not sent an answer. I have been wounded 9 times, and so have feared for my life."
Poor Ribadi wasn't alone. Other pleas came from Egypt's outposts, but they went unanswered. Egypt's domination of the Near East had slipped away, and Akhenaten didn't seem to know or care. Isolated from the problems of Egypt, and perhaps from reality, Akhenaten must have been truly happy with his new god, his new family, and his new city. But after 14 years of marriage, his beautiful wife and companion Nefertiti died. His other wife, Kia, had also died, so now he was without a woman at his side. Akhenaten had been raised among women, 4 sisters and his powerful mother, Queen Ti. Nefertiti had always been at his side, sharing his dreams. Kia, his beautiful minor wife, was also important to him. She even had her own temple. Now both wives were dead. Akhenaten was alone again. The great experiment in the desert was nearly over. In the 17th year of his reign, only in his 30s, Akhenaten died and disappears from history. Will we ever know what really happened at Amarna? Did Akhenaten really look like his statues? Many believe that the only way we will ever find out is if Akhenaten's mummy is found. That's just what some Egyptologists believed happened in January of 1907. Of all the royal mummies ever discovered, none caused more controversy than the one found in Tomb 55 of the Valley of the Kings. At the beginning of the century, Theodore Davis, a wealthy American excavating in Egypt, discovered a tomb in which a burial from the Amarna period had been reinterred. This tomb was clearly unfinished, and the burial a hasty one. Gilded wooden panels lay on the floor and against the wall. They bore the damaged image of Akhenaten, worshipping the sun disk, and the name of Queen T. In a niche were 4 beautiful alabaster jars that held the mummy's internal organs. Lying on the floor was a badly damaged but beautiful coffin, made with thousands of paste inlays and semi-precious stones in the shape of protective wings. But the cartouches containing the occupant's name had been hacked out. Everyone involved in the tomb's excavation believed that they would be able to identify the mummy inside the coffin once the lid was removed and the inscriptions on the bandages or jewelry were examined. When the day of unwrapping arrived, all those present had a sense of the event's historical importance. They were going to be the first people in more than 3,000 years to look at the face of a king or queen of Egypt. When they raised the lid to the coffin, a mummy was revealed, wrapped in gold leaf. But as they began unwrapping the mummy, something out of a horror movie happened. As soon as they touched the mummy, it crumbled to dust, leaving the excavators with a pile of disarticulated bones at the bottom of the coffin. But beneath the skeleton, the last sheet of gold seemed to have the damaged name of Akhenaten written on it. The pelvis was wide, like a female's, but Akhenaten had always been shown in his statues with a wide pelvis, and the head was elongated, like Akhenaten's. It all seemed to fit perfectly. Some of those present were absolutely convinced they had found the mummy of Akhenaten. But today, the identity of the mummy in Tomb 55 is still a mystery. The final word on why Akhenaten and the royal family was shown as deformed may be written right now by a group of scientists working on a disease known as Marfan syndrome, a genetic defect that damages the body's connective tissue. Abraham Lincoln was probably a sufferer of Marfan syndrome. Some of the symptoms are an elongated face, protruding chin, long thin fingers and toes, unusual eyes. Sound like any pharaoh you know? And if Akhenaten had this genetic defect, each of his daughters had a 50-50 chance of inheriting it. That might explain why everyone is shown with similar symptoms.